How many times have you started a new goal with massive excitement, only to have that energy fade 2 weeks later? Welcome to Perspective Shifting Podcast, the show that is here to help you stop relying on motivation and start building unstoppable discipline. I am your host, Martha Wooden, and today we are talking about how to stop trying and start flowing in commitment and consistency. In this episode, I'm breaking down the framework used to help us to stop quitting and how we can make consistency feel natural for flowing and not forced. If you've ever struggled to show up for yourself, this episode is for you. Now let's dive in. Getting started first with stating what commitment and consistency is. Commitment is the initial decision or pledge to a goal, while consistency is the daily repeated action that sustains it, forming the foundation for long term success. Together, they transform intentions into results, as commitment provides the why and consistency provides the how. Consistency reinforces commitment, creating momentum and building trust. The definition of terms: commitment is the heart posture of promise, whereas consistency is the disciplined action that follows, ensuring dependability. Consistency means showing up daily, regardless of feelings, turning small, often unnoticed efforts into significant, lasting results, in which is the power of small actions. As described in psychology, humans have a deep seated need to align their actions with previous commitments to maintain integrity and self image, which is the psychological driver. The more consistent you are, the more your commitment is strengthened, making it easier to overcome obstacles. This is recognized as building momentum. Success is often driven by a combination of clarity, which provides direction, commitment, which is the fuel, and consistency, which is the journey, which are known as the three C's. Lack of consistency is the primary cause of failure, which can which can be mitigated by creating a plan B and persisting through challenges, which is known as failure in persistence. Shifting focus from instant results to the daily, consistent actions that build progress over time, focusing on process while implementing consistency. Consistency must be maintained even when challenges arise to build enduring habits and achieve goals in order to overcome obstacles. Would you like to explore specific strategies for building or perhaps rebuilding consistency in your daily routine? If so, then I will discuss this now. Building a or rebuilding consistency is a daily routine. It's best achieved by starting small, utilizing habit stacking, and focusing on sustainable, incremental changes rather than an immediate full life overhaul. Key strategies include anchoring new habits to existing ones, such as planning the night before and allowing flexibility to maintain progress without guilt. Here are some specific actionable strategies for building consistency. Start small and build slowly. Implement only one or two new habits at a time to avoid burnout. Focus on consistent daily actions rather than massive, sporadic efforts in order to build the foundation. Second, pair a new behavior with an existing automatic habit. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I write down my three top priorities for the day. In executing this is using habit stacking. This is known as habit stacking. Stacking. Third, define your why. Clearly identify the purpose behind your routine to maintain motivation. Fourth, ensure your routine fits your current lifestyle, not an idealized version of it in order to set realistic goals. We have strategic implementation using the never miss twice rule. If you miss a day, do not try to make it up. Just focus on not missing that next day, which prevents a slip from becoming a new bad habit. This is known as a strategic implementation. Using the early hours for high focus personal tasks before distractions begin is leveraging your mornings. Schedule specific 30 to 60-minute blocks for tasks to create structure and reduce decision fatigue. This is implementing time blocking. Prepare clothes, meals, or to-do lists in advance to lower the barrier to action. Planning the night before. In order to maintain and rebuild, we must measure and track our progress using a journal or app to track habits, which provides accountability and visual reinforcement. We must also focus on the trend and not on the position by evaluating our consistency over a week or month rather than observing over a single day's failure. And do not focus on the failure. Move on, move forward. We must be flexible and resilient with allowing for adjustments when life gets unpredictable. A rigid routine breaks while a flexible one bends. We must reward our small wins, celebrate milestones to reinforce the behavior and maintain positive self talk. For rebuilding, the best approach is to pick one tiny habit and re-establish it for a week before adding another, focusing on consistency over intensity. So, which of these strategies, starting small, habit stacking, or tracking, do you feel is most crucial for you to begin with right now? Choosing the most crucial strategy depends on your current challenge, as each addresses a different barrier to behavior change. These three strategies serve distinct purposes. Starting small is most crucial if you are feeling overwhelmed or struggling to find motivation. By scaling a habit down to just 2 minutes, you remove the barrier of effort, making it nearly impossible to fail. Habit stacking is most crucial if you often forget to perform your new habit. It provides a built-in trigger by anchoring a new action to an existing routine, such as after I pour my coffee, I will meditate. Tracking is most crucial if you need accountability. or a sense of progress. It builds awareness and leverages the satisfaction of not breaking the streak to keeping you consistent over the long term. This is a summary of strengths. Strategy. The strategy is to start small. It is best for beating procrastination. The core benefit when using this strategy to start small helps reduce friction and intimidation. Now, this strategy is habit stacking. It is best for building automatic. The core benefit when using this strategy allows us to use existing cues in order to trigger new actions. This last strategy is tracking. It is best for maintaining consistency. The core benefit when using this strategy helps to visualize progress and helps build motivation. To wrap this podcast up, let me end this podcast discussion with flowing versus forcing. Flowing versus forced commitment and consistency refers to the difference between internal, voluntary dedication to a goal in connection to and with flowing, and external, pressured or rigid adherence to a decision that is in connection to and with forced. Flowing in commitment that comes from within originates internally based on personal values, goals, and genuine motivation. Flexible, adaptable, and often sustainable because it aligns with one's self concept are known as the characteristics. Deep, long lasting behavioral changes because the individual wants to be consistent with their self image. It and is the result of flowing and commitment that comes from within willingly. I'll repeat that again. Deep, lasting, long lasting behavioral changes because the individual wants to be consistent with their self image is the result of flowing and commitment that comes from within willingly. For example, a person commits to a fitness goal because they truly desire better health, leading them to adapt their routine when life gets busy. They willingly adapt their routine when life gets busy because they want to commit to a fitness goal because they truly desire better health. Forced commitment is unchangeable and comes from the external, being driven by external pressures such as public reputation, social expectations, or initial small binding commitments, such as aiming to gain your foot in the door. Rigid, stubborn, and often driven by fear of appearing inconsistent or hypocritical are the characteristics of this from this external force. There is a high likelihood of following through even if the decision is bad or irrational because the person is trying to avoid cognitive dissonance, and this is the result from the external forcing. For example, let me repeat that. There is a high likelihood of following through, even if the decision is bad or irrational, because the person is trying to avoid cognitive dissonance. And this is the result from the external forcing. For example, a person continues a project that is failing simply because they publicly announced they would do it. There are key differences. Flowing comes from within, but when forced, it comes from outside pressure. Flowing allows for adaptability, persistence, but when forced, this often results in stubborn and flexible resistance. Flowing is driven by desire, but when forced, it is driven by the fear of inconsistency. Forced commitment can feel like a burden, while flowing feels more naturally sustainable. While the consistency principle, which is a key persuasion concept that often relies on making small initial commitments, which can feel forced, but in order to gain later compliance, the most durable long term changes come from authentic, voluntary flowing and dedication. Now, to bring this podcast to a close, which of these barriers, lack of time, forgetting the habit, or losing motivation, is your biggest hurdle right now? Think thoroughly about this, but hold your thoughts until next time. I will discuss this on next week's podcast right here at this same meeting place. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Perspective Shifting. I've covered some big ideas on how to find our flow today. I've talked about how true consistency isn't about crushing ourselves with forced external pressure, but about staying in a flow of commitment and consistency in order to reach our goals. Remember, we do not need to be perfect, we just need to be present. Our commitment is the heart, our consistency is the action. So before you leave, I want to challenge you to choose one small, manageable action to take within the next 24 hours that serves your future self. Small, committed steps are what creates lasting changes. If you're ready to build a more consistent life, make sure to hit subscribe so that you don't miss next week's podcast episode, where I'll dive even deeper into flowing and commitment and consistency and various other avenues, because this flow connection needs to be applied to and in all areas of our lives. If this episode helped you find your rhythm, I'd be honored if you would share it with someone else who may be working toward a challenging and big goal. The next episode will air on Wednesday, February 25th, 2026, Central Standard Time, again, right here on my YouTube channel. Until then, keep flowing in commitment and in consistency. Keep showing up for yourself. I am Martha Wood, and this is the Perspective Shifting Podcast. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. I'll see you next week. Goodbye for now. God bless.